welcome back, everyone, to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Hello, everyone.
Mike, did I miss anything?
Gentlemen?
Well, today's major topic is going to be around, let's talk about what happened at Microsoft Ignite. A lot of announcements have been made. We got new visuals. We got new features. There's things called Copilot all over the place. We got to figure out what's this mean to us now. So there's a lot of things that seem to have changed here recently. Looking forward to discussing what we think are impactful, what we really are excited about, and things that are just maybe we are okay with. So we'll give you a real opinion around all the new features coming out, and I guess we'll have to dive into it a little bit. But before we do that, let's do some news. Any news articles here? Anything that's worthy of talking about other than Ignite?
It's probably semantic models are a thing now.
Well, we're going to have a giveaway.
Oh, yes. Would you like me to
go ahead, Tommy? Light it up.
Oh, man. I'm so excited to say this. So we've done this once in the podcast a lifetime, and we're going to do it again. What a perfect time to do so. We're doing away 2 promotions, correct? Or just one right now?
Just do one for now. Or 2, whatever. I don't care. Whatever.
Okay, sure, we'll do 2. Why not? So if you love Power BI tips, if you love themes, and you love the Explicit Measures podcast, we're actually doing an honor of Microsoft Fabric becoming generally available as of yesterday, which is incredible. We're giving away 10 subscriptions for 2 weeks on Power BI Tips Plus. Power BI Tips Plus is for the theme generator. And let me put it this way, guys. Mike, obviously I work with Mike. I help test the themes generator. If Mike said, Mike or Tommy, you're going to have to pay for it, my next sentence would be, here's my card info. So
it's very reasonably priced to begin with, but we want to get people started a bit more. So
how do you actually enter into this drawing? Well, go on LinkedIn and Twitter and tell others and us why you like the podcast with the hashtag Explicit Measures Podcast, and you will automatically be entered into the drawing. This starts now until the end of the month. So as many times as you want to post, you're entered to a drawing. We're going to do a random drawing and 10 giveaways. That's the first promotion we're doing. The second one is also exciting. There's a conference going on right now. What a perfect time. Some of you may actually be there. There's a lot more conferences going on. Well, and this is a brainchild of Mike, and I love this. Go ahead, take a picture of yourself at a conference with the hashtag Explicit Measures Podcast, saying you're at the conference. You're doing great. That's one type of giveaway. Mike, tell me about the other one.
Yeah, if you just show up at a conference, be at a sign, just share some love there. Take a picture of yourself. Make sure that you promote that you like the Explicit Measure podcast while you're there. We're happy to promote the event as well as the podcast as well. So we'll give you a week free of Tips Plus if you post that. Also, if you can find a program manager from Microsoft, we'll give you 2 weeks of Tips Plus for free.
Program manager to take a picture with.
Don't take them home with you.
It's not just a selfie. it's a picture with a.
You have to have a picture. You have to have a picture with a manager at any one of the product managers with Microsoft. Make sure you tag I love Microsoft and I love the Explicit Measures podcast. We're looking for the Explicit Measures podcast tag. That will also get you in the running for some free Tips Plus subscriptions as well. So we appreciate the community. The community is awesome, a lot of fun. We felt this would be like a really interesting game to kind of play here and see who wants to jump in and join the Explicit Measures community a little bit more here as we try to continue talking about these great tools that changes all of our careers. It's changed our careers. We're doing this stuff full time now. So we hope you're enjoying it as much as we are.
Yeah. And just to reiterate Mike's point, the rules of the road here, the promotion starts today, goes through the end of the month. Yep. In order to be entered into either drawing, you must have the hashtag Explicit Measures Podcast.
Yes. Awesome. With that, let's jump into our main topic for today. Ignite has happened. What is Ignite, Tommy? Give us the kind of, for those who are not following along the news here, who maybe haven't heard what's going on. I can't assume that everyone's jumping in on this. What's kind of the run around here, and what is Ignite?
I would say Microsoft Ignite is the second or third largest conference that Microsoft puts on every year. It's probably the Microsoft Build, which happens in the spring. And Ignite is their fall, very developer focused. If you watched the keynote yesterday, about chips and computes, but it's a little more developer focused. It's all about the developers, all about trying to build a better UI experience for them, better technology for them. Yeah. And obviously there's a lot of correlation to what we do.
So that's, I mean, believe it or not, it felt like this conference, even though it's very heavy developer focused. I don't feel like the things that I've been hearing so far have been super developer intense at this point. It's been interesting to see what's going on there. There's been a couple sessions that I think are a bit more, what I would say, in the weeds, more technical in nature. But for whatever reason, this Ignite has felt much more marketing. And look at us, we're presenting a lot of publicly facing things now, that more so than in the past. That's just maybe my perception.
They had a 3D rack during the main keynote by Satya. It was a giant compute rack that was all virtual, showing like how the virtual. I mean, they have, I think, what the highest powered virtual machine publicly available in the world.
Yeah, I saw Satya. That was
Yeah.
part of his main announcement in the keynote, I guess, of the event. Excellent. So where do we want to take it from here? What do we want to talk about? So there's a lot of announcements have been made around specifically Fabric. I guess maybe the first one I'd like to touch on here is if you were using Fabric on Tuesday, you were using Fabric in a non-production environment. But by the way, Wednesday, you can use it in production. So I think Wednesday, they announced the initial availability of Fabric is now generally available. It is now ready for production workloads. You can start using Fabric for your production environments.
Were
Thoughts
you
on this one?
expecting that to happen this early? I thought it would be 2024 that Fabric would be all GA, but that's what it is today.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because there's portions of Fabric that are now GA and there's portions that are still not GA. It's like still preview. So like I think they got enough done to say yes, it's GA. It's going well. I also heard from one of the I think it was in the keynote, they have 25. I think Arun was making some comments on a little video somewhere in the middle of Ignite. They have 25,000 customers, not people using it. 25,000 customers, and a large majority of the Fortune 100, Fortune 500, are already using Fabric at some level capacity. And even though they're using all this capacity and they're jumping in with it, there's already 3 different workloads that people are using inside those Fabric environments. So I don't know if this is a testament to if you give something away for free, people will use it, or it was really that game changer thing that people really want to get in and manipulate and play with. So it'll be interesting to see how that adoption continues to move. A lot of this has been under the trial experience. I know I have I have 2 organizations. Both of them have workloads running inside Fabric because it was free. It's easy to click a button. I get an F64. I'm getting free premium, essentially P1 level capabilities out of the box right away. So I was loving it, trying to experiment with things, figuring out what workloads I can put there. And it's, as someone who's more, I would call myself more of a data engineer than I would a data modeler or a developer of reports, because I think more of my skills align to that area because I've been doing more of the back end engineering of things. As I've been moving more workloads over to Fabric, there's a lot of solid aspects of being able to get data in and get it into reports. It makes it pretty easy with a couple clicks.
The free thing is a large point here, and obviously we know that we're doing a promotion for free stuff, but more importantly, this doesn't work if they don't give it away for free. And I truly believe that. If they didn't give away Fabric for free in that beginning of the trial period, doing the preview, I don't know how well Fabric works. It's the same strategy they do with Power BI today.
Yes, correct.
With desktop. I was doing a dashboard day yesterday. I'm like, yeah, for those who are old who had SSAS and you had licensing, you get that now for free. Just download. And I think that's a beautiful thing about, you're testing Fabric. Of course, it's a little buggy, or now this GA, expecting those bugs to go away. But but more important, it's like, I see how I can now fit this in my own workloads. And as a consultant too, it's like, I see how this can work for all these other scenarios. That doesn't happen unless how much money they spent, not just to develop it, but then to allow people to run these compute workloads, these machines, these engines. So
whenever we transition from really low level SKUs to allow people to do 25% of something, it was really hard to get a full idea of the POC without actually spooling up things. So like transitioning to you have everything you would need to understand whether or not this is going to work for you. The only thing you may not have is like this thing called sharing or, whatever the case may be from like Power BI side. But now, like going through these, from a deployment standpoint, obviously there's been a large shift to let people kick the tires because there's larger adoption of these tool sets because people get to work with them, understand fully what they can and can't do for their work streams, and then light them up, hopefully with GA.
I think the next kind of big ticket item here is if we were all playing when is Copilot coming in Power BI, we all lost that because it's now. That's the next major announcement where Copilot is a public preview of Copilot in Microsoft Fabric for report building is one of the major parts where it's like, hey, let's build, I need a summary of this. They've rebranded a few things, which makes perfect sense. The smart narrative feature is now Copilot.
Copilot, yeah.
Which just logically makes sense. I think they're building it into the Q&A feature as well, which again makes perfect sense. Is the next logical step. And that's just on the report.
We talked about that not long ago, right? Like where it's going to recommend synonyms, like the different things that you would need in your model and the complexity around all that. So it's cool that they plugged it into that specific spot.
Report creation, DAX writing experience. I think there's another one, Mike.
I saw a demo of them doing some Power Query as well. There was a demo of Power Query having Copilot as well. Hey, I want to take this column, or find the distance and time between this start date and the end date. What's the range? And it was able to pick up columns that had date things, date start, date end, and was able to get a duration between them and start writing some of your M code for you, which I think will be, again, I think people eventually start writing their own code because they start seeing it enough. Because you start learning it, but you need something to initially write the code for you so you can learn as you go along. I think that's very important here, is to make sure that this is how I learned a lot of my code pieces. Give me samples of code, auto-generate some stuff for me, let me see it being generated, and then I can make the connection between what I asked for and what I'm getting, which is super helpful.
And we know this can work. Like if this was a year ago, it's not going to write DAX, but I did that experiment with that Cruiser AI tool. And I fed it literally DAX.guide and SQL BI. I said, here's documentation. I need a rolling 60-day measure and really no tweaks. And I told it what my model looked like. I had to define it. So obviously it looked like VS Code. Came out pretty darn well. So we know this can work. There's a few gripes here I have personally. The synonym feature is coming out in November 2023. But a lot of the features of Copilot in Microsoft Fabric, I think with notebooks, probably with data flows, Power Query, that's probably going to happen by the end of March 2024. So that's the one gripe I have. Like, great feature. I'm glad you're announcing it. We're still 4 months away.
I'm also very aware that, a lot of these Copilot level features, and it's expensive to run them, right? Another announcements that kind of correspond with a lot of this Copilot integration with Power BI is Microsoft has, I've been talking about this a lot, is, first thing you do is you build a product, right? So you build ChatGPT or you build a product that people want to use. You start incorporating, you gain adoption. So you put it in Bing, you put it in your Edge browser, you put it in all over the place where people can easily use it and say, wow, this thing actually adds value to my life. I like to use it. What drives adoption? And then the third phase of this is once you have a user base, you've made it, you have a user base. The third step is to optimize what you're building. And there was a ton of announcements around Microsoft's making this chip. They're building data centers more effectively. These chips and computes are very expensive in a heat and energy usage standpoint. So they're doing a lot of work around how do we make this ChatGPT experience as efficient as possible, where you can run these models. I mean, I was talking with a data scientist recently, and he was saying, a ChatGPT model running on a graphics processor unit eats an inordinate amount of graphics processing for a long period of time. So it's literally making max compute, max wattage usage for a period of time. I can't remember what he said, but as long as the thing is prompting, it's like pegged out. It pegs out, and it's like full usage of whatever that GPU is doing. So in order to serve millions of requests back through these things, you had to have an infrastructure that supports it. and it's got to be efficient. You've got to figure out faster ways of using these prompting things. So it'll be interesting to see where Copilot actually lands as far as, does it come in Pro? Does it come in Premium per user? Can you get
P1.
it in an F SKU? Which F SKUs will it start applying to? So I think there's going to be thresholds here for organizations. Some will be able to get it earlier than others because they have a larger amount of spend inside the Power BI ecosystem.
With all the Copilot and AI stuff, did they spend any time in any of the presentations talking about the data itself? Like, it is so with when you're spooling up LLMs or whatever, like, security is a big thing, right? Even in the preview things, is it what I would expect, where it's locked down into your tenant, it's only looking at your data's not getting sent anywhere, or is that, did they address that at all?
Yes. Yeah, they said a lot of these things these are your data. Again, this has been a newsworthy article a lot, and NVIDIA came on stage and talked a lot about how their graphics processors and that combined with Microsoft infrastructure is really going to help you build models that live only with your data, right? The queries that you're running against it will answer them, but your data is not being used to go back into retrained models, right? So if you send it code, the idea is it will use that code. It will then do some large language model elements on top of it, but it's not going to then go back into the funnel of, okay, now it's the large pool of all large language models, and we're going to train on it now. So
yeah,
and they're trying to
that,
do that.
I think that's a really important point. Copilot for code editing, like, yeah, fine, right? I understand there is some potentially very proprietary code in that, but if Copilot all of a sudden is now like, hey, generate a report for me, you just open up an entire data set or semantic model to that, right? So, like,
not a data set. We don't have those anymore. Those are gone.
Semantic model of data.
That's another thing that's happening here is the name of the models themselves have changed now. We're no longer talking data sets. Data sets have gone by the wayside, which I think is a very smart move by Microsoft, honestly.
Yeah. I know for me, like, I can't use VS Code now without Copilot, and I think that's just going to happen part of the workflow with Fabric. I think another feature that kind of got swept under the rug was not one of the major announcements, at least in the first keynote, but Power BI semantic model support for Direct Lake expands from just lake houses, but also the data warehouse. That's pretty big.
Oh,
I think so too.
So I mean, just kind of give a background here. That direct lake mode in importing data, or it's not importing data, but connecting to data in Power BI semantic model, just before only supported lake houses in Microsoft Fabric. It did not support. If I wanted to create a warehouse, if I want to create the SQL warehouse, that was going to be import mode. That's now also has the capabilities for direct lake. And again, that is
really
yeah. So that flies, man. That is one of my favorite features here, because not every time I need to do a lake house. Maybe I don't have files. Maybe I'm connecting to a SQL database, right?
True.
And I don't have, there's a lot of scenarios I've run into. I'm like, well, I could do a lake house, but I would only do the lake house just for direct lake mode.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm just like, there was probably some plumbing that had to be, rewired, fixed, whatever. But because we know, like, regardless, if you're building things in the SQL warehouse or the lake house or whatever, like, those objects are the same, right? So to support one and not the other, it's awesome that that works in all the methods now for connection. Because I would imagine there's a lot more SQL based solutions than there are lakehouse with notebook.
Yeah, and it's going to take. Yeah, I was going to say it's going to take a while for everything to migrate to. If everything migrates to the lakehouse, I mean, SQL databases aren't going anywhere. At least now, maybe in the next 10 years, but it's going to take a while to migrate anything over. So, I am all for this feature.
And another one I want to point out here. So we're talking about a lot of little things here. Let's keep going through some features. There's a ton of stuff that's been announced.
Yeah.
There's a new thing called real-time replication or mirroring.
Oh yeah.
Was wondering your thoughts. So I'm not a SQL traditional guy. I'm kind of more of the warehouse modern person on this one. This mirroring effect connecting directly to a database, listening to the change data capture log, taking all the information in. And it sounds like they're trying to keep these tables up to date as quickly as possible. Seth, what are your thoughts on this thing? Is this a useful feature, or is this something that's kind of more nuanced for people who are using large databases and getting it into Fabric?
Yeah, I think I'm excited. I'm excited about this one because in some ways it kind of seems like the shortcut within Fabric, right? Like I have an object, I'm not moving it anywhere. You can just access it, and this is now something that is on the data source side, right? So pre getting it into Fabric, or like connecting to a data source and not having to move data.
That's important.
Is a huge thing. And I think it also solves like a lot of the larger problem where you would have it, okay, well, I'm sold on Fabric. I wanna do more with it, but I have to plan a migration of like moving all of my data and the structures into this thing, and with mirroring, based on your description to me, because I'm the hot take guy. You guys got to have all the fun yesterday and expend absorb this information firsthand. But ultimately, like to me, that's going to lower the bar for people to push or use Fabric much faster, and not have to worry about redesigning data source systems that may already have a lot of business logic and ETL or ELT built into them.
It sounds like there's this need for virtualizing data that's becoming very important, right?
Yeah.
Create your data, move it once, let it stay there. Don't move it again. This is going to, I think, the more that Microsoft can lean into this seems like another strategic move for them for, why the Fabric is there, what's inside the Fabric experience, all the lakehouse elements they're building. Another feature that dovetails along with this about the idea of, creating your data and then letting it live there. There was another, what's the other feature here? There's a feature that they were talking about. I don't know if the name of it off the top of my head. There's a feature where you can take an imported data set. So you have a data set or semantic model.
I know where we're going. Yeah.
That is imported. You can take that imported model and you can push the tables back down to Lakehouse. So this was someone in one of my classes around Power BI pointed out, hey, I saw this feature on the thing. Can you talk more about it? I'm like, I didn't know about this one yet. This was recently announced. I didn't really hear about this one coming down the pipeline. Very interesting, because this is allowing you to take any existing semantic model and query the tables as if they were coming directly from the lake, which is very interesting. I want to see this feature in action. I want to look at this one a little bit more in detail, because I want to focus on, if I take an already importing model and push it down to my lake, what happens to those tables when I refresh the data set? Does it automatically keep those things in synchronized for me or not? I don't know yet. But this is this is going to make it very easy for us to migrate all potentially existing workloads into other Fabric elements. And if I think about it here as well, you already have inside a semantic model, you have M, you have tables, and you have analysis services all built into the Power BI report.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you couldn't just rip out, why don't we just move the M over to Data Flows Gen 2? Why don't we just move those tables down to Lakehouse? There should be some, let's call it migration tools, right? If you're ready to go to Fabric, this is what I would call the proper enterprise story that we've been looking for. Build everything in desktop, get a good proof of concept rocking and rolling. Hit drop it down to Lake, and it automatically builds. Here's the data flow that supports your tables, that supports your report all the way through. Boom, done. That would be really amazing if we can get to that point where we could really say, let's take a development exercise around a report and move it into an enterprise grade type solution.
Yeah, what's nuts with the mirroring, as I'm like scrolling through here, is just like it's not just the source, right? It's the ability to join into the data sets in an efficient manner. That's but
big. This it hits one of these moments for me where I'm like, people keep building really big tables inside Excel to get access to all their data. I'm not sure that's the best solution anymore. Maybe we give them other tooling that lets them pull wide, long tables of information out of it and don't use, like, is there a more efficient way than to have this inside a cube? Maybe there is now. Like, maybe we can build other tools around this that are going to let people get access to data by dumping out large, wide tables.
So this one feature alone tells me two very large things that are coming down. Is one, we have no idea what the direct link mode is really capable of, and I think we're just finding out what the technology is going to do. The other side of this too is because they say like, hey, you're going to be able to query using T-SQL, Python, Scala, PySpark using this feature. So I can actually query a Power BI semantic model from a direct link with Python and Scala. This goes back to the Power BI semantic model is no longer the end of the road of your analytic solution. It's just becoming a part of the path where it's actually just another path. It's another road with a lot more directions.
Yes.
And this is what the capability of is. This is to me, I cannot understand how big this is for what we do. We've worked in the last 7 years, 8 years of our lives where Power BI models, semantic models were the end of our analytical solutions. Because whatever we transform in Power Query, it wasn't going anywhere else. That's just now part of the analytical journey. And so these are underrated features to I think where we're going from business intelligence.
I can see an argument how that's amazing, and I can also see an argument where it's going to create even more problems.
Okay,
right?
go on.
Well, I mean, the way I think about this is now, like, as I'm developing solutions and a semantic model to service up multiple reports, or like a warehouse, right? Facts, dimensions, etc. I'm a data mart. I'm building an object to serve out reporting that and logic that makes sense for a bunch of reporting. If I then use that as a data source, it's not the end of the road, right? And I now have pieces that go into it, and then further dependencies, not just from a report side, but dependencies that could create problems for me changing things in that semantic model in the future, because now it's a data source for something else. Like, and ultimately it's like, is this a fantastic play? Because like now you would absolutely need Purview or something that would hook all of this together. Otherwise you would have absolutely no idea what's using what. Possibly, right? So I'm not saying there's not value there. I when we get into the, like how I describe like data spider webs of I have no idea what's happening anymore, that's a hindrance to change, because you wouldn't know if you had to make a fundamental change what it would be breaking downstream. And that's what scares me about it. It's just like I haven't thought through like, hey, is this a fantastic thing? I'm not as excited as you are right out of the gate. Well, because I think that is going to be part of a potential problem in the future that we have to deal with.
I think we got 4 episodes on that coming up, probably, because this goes back to like, is it only certified data sets that go with this? Probably not every data set, but this absolutely.
Tommy said it. Tommy's everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot,
let everyone know.
Well, hold on, no.
This is it. I've been saying it for weeks now, everyone. I've been saying certified data sets. We want to put our effort where
the certified data sets. Yeah.
And Tommy,
it's a certified semantic model, isn't it?
Today, 11/16 at 8 a.m., Tommy has made in a submission that he says certified data sets are probably where we should invest our time and money. We all agree. I'm just teasing you, Tommy.
Yeah. Well, first off, is it a certified semantic model? I don't even know anymore.
It's not a certified data set anymore.
I am so good. Yeah.
It's a certified semantic model. Let's add more words to the thing.
Fun. I know, a certified data model semantic, something like that. But regardless, and yes, I do. I've never said I don't like certified whatever.
Oh, I'm just totally giving you a hard time here.
Yeah. But this absolutely, to your point, Seth, elevates, I think, the business user who's creating these models, and it definitely elevates what the models should be, where maybe it doesn't become as much of a commodity anymore. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. There's a lot more conversation.
I mean, the fantastic parts about it are if you really understand that semantic model, like, oh my gosh, plugging into something that's highly curated into a form that you can like plug into a query or as a data source, like that's hugely valuable. The other thing that is probably another whole episode is, oh my gosh, you guys, like we absolutely need to be really clear about where and how the transformations and documentation and like now I have how many different places where things are being modified, changed, etc. And you would need to understand in order to use them as a data source, because there's so much business logic behind there. It'll be an interesting foray. I'm just like, I love the possibilities. It just scares me.
Well, I'm hoping it's not one of those global toggles in the admin portal where it's like, hey, for all your semantic models, one link integration. This should be something for certain security groups or workspaces have that access to work.
What else we got?
Dude. We've talked about this a bunch.
Yes.
Public preview of the data analysis expression, our favorite DAX query view.
Yes. Okay. I was hoping we were going to get to this one sooner than later.
Yeah.
This one's amazing. The amount of times you've had issues or challenges with these things. So it's not about sell. Thank you very much for the sponsorship on this one. Yeah. It's been a great Ignite launch, and this is one of the main features that we want to talk about here. We'll for sure, Tommy will buy me a steak with that one because he talked about certified data models.
Is not about to sell the MS Knight liaison. Then?
Maybe Alex is doing that. Yeah, he's our MS Ignite liaison.
He's who they brought over to wake up.
Yes, exactly. This DAX query view, it feels like we're pulling some of the features we typically had in DAX Studio or Tabular Editor into desktop now. And I do know I've heard a lot of language from customers that say, well, if we need a third-party tool to do DAX tuning and development, it should just be built into the tool. Totally understand. But this is more, I think the DAX experience there is more around developers than it is new users and builders. So to me, this is some more investment that Microsoft is being willing to make around the heavier development features.
I'm going to say yes and no to that. So I part of my training is we do like an advanced or like intermediate DAX course and optimization. And or two separate courses, and we have to go to an external tool to do so. We do the performance optimizer. We do, and you could tell the fear and dread that guts in people's faces when you're like, "What's that DAX Studio? It's a studio. I don't want to do a studio." Like just the idea of going to this different area. And these are features that are, I mean, the evaluate. It's not terribly difficult. But now that it's already pre-built, there's going to be a lot more adoption of using DAX queries, which is such a good testing tool, which is such a good, not just for optimization, but testing things out. What is actually my number, right? What is my actual number? Something you can easily do in a SQL database, but also I want to test something and I'm not going to blow up my model. So I am so happy to see this one for new users to get started with doing DAX queries, but selfishly for me too, because a lot of use cases.
Yeah, I think, although regardless, you need some tooling around this. It's not perfect yet, but I'm hoping they continue to invest in it. I hope it continues to look more like DAX Studio. Hey, I can write this query, I can see it run. I think there's some even easy buttons to move between the performance analyzer and right into the DAX query editor. So that's going to be really helpful there. There was more than one beginner, like there's more than one persona. And Alex, you're saying exactly right? There is definitely more than one user using desktop. There are beginner people that are just trying to get data in from a model and make a visual on a page. But there also are advanced people, and a lot of organizations are using desktop as the way to build the semantic model. That is their definition. They're not willing to commit to a tabular editor and only build models using code. So we do need some sort of happy medium here, and having a desktop application that does more of what we want, I think is going to be extremely helpful.
I mean, I 100% agree with Alex's comment, right? Not only personas, but like saying that the desktop should be way simpler out of the box and also have a developer mode toggle. Like, dude, I've been on that train for a long time, right?
Totally.
You have completely different sets of people that are engaging with this tool. We err a lot on the, oh my gosh, Uber developer mode, like CI/CD and like changing all this. And it's fantastic. But yeah, to the lay user, things like this are the view that they should hit, right? And then as you get comfortable, you get a lot of value out of the tool without hitting these really hard technical stops like DAX can do. Is I think something that's just going to get more adoption of the tool and more people engaged when you need them to be, right? Because even when we talk about adoption and how many users within an organization, it's a small percentage that are the people that are going to be engaging in building reporting. But the easier you make it, then you're lowering the barrier and picking up, a few more percent of people to bring them along for the ride.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a win. I'm really liking this feature already. I think it's going to be solid. I'm going to, in one general, love using it. I think this is going to be a new staple in many people's training organizations, right? So you've gone through the beginner stuff. You're now on the intermediate level. You're starting to get a bit better. This is the next logical step to get you deeper into that. So I think this is a very good move for them to kind of go this direction. Also, with this, right, that PBAP format, it's another, I mean, they've been doing this for a while now. It's on preview right now, but that's another very developer-centric way of thinking about building reports and things. So also very pleased to see that they're adding more investment in those areas.
I know there's a few other things on the main announcement. Mike, do you have anything else there? Because we have literally, I think it looks like 25 pages on just the Fabric November update.
It's going to be overwhelming.
I don't know where do you want to go?
I think we talk about new slicers, right? So we have a new button slicer, which looks amazing. By the way, this is work that's being done by Miguel Myers. I can't tell you how clunky slicers have been in the past, and you can't really change them or stylize them or tweak them very well. Already, I'm seeing reports come out. I think I saw someone in Jane Park, I think from Enterprise DNA, just popped out a report and had like a Nike shoe kind of look or feel around a report. He had all these cool shoes. You just click on the shoe. It had a little title next to it. Looked really, really neat, and it changed the report page. So already, people are starting to investigate and figuring out how these different slicers and things will work here. That's going to be another one that's very, very relevant here. And I'm very excited about that one to enhance your reporting. I just recently had a project where we needed to enhance the slicer or just have some additional elements here. Even the new KPI card pieces, it's a lot easier to build these things now when you can actually add images and graphics, titles and subtitles. Like, it really feels more like a robust experience now. So I'm really excited about the new visual improvements. The team has been doing a way better job not hiding the doggone the erase button for when you have a filter context. I mean, just keeping it there all the time and letting me see it is very helpful as well. So very much improved on the new visuals.
Yeah, and the reference labels go along with that too, right? Like, this is probably coming out of Miguel's team, right? Like, all of these visualization type enhancements are the polish that people have been asking for a long time.
Yes,
and I'm happy to see our part of the launch of all the things, because these are going to be the big things that you start to see right out of the gate. And the only way you could have produced these in the past is by many different visuals compiled on top of one another. A very laborious process. Whereas now, all this stuff is starting to get really simple, really polished, and I think to the earlier point, it's just going to increase usage of the tooling.
This is one you were looking for, Seth. Another feature here. This is more of the service-based things. Row level security and object level security and stored credentials now are using with direct lake semantic models. That was one major blocker. You said, I can't use a direct lake without having more of the RLS and OLS supported through a direct lake connectivity, which is huge. Well, that's massive.
It reduces the usability of that feature, right?
You're saying without the feature, it reduces the usability, but with it, you can now have more use cases. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. I think that's another really, really interesting one. One here that I want to point out here, just your feedback on the semantic model scale out was very interesting. So it's basically getting a lot of read-only copies. When I read this one initially, I was like, okay. Then I read a little bit further in here. You can do refresh isolation. You can have something refreshing in an isolated manner and then quickly swap it out at the end. More advanced refreshing scenarios. You get increased query throughput because you can have multiple queries hitting multiple analysis services that are all copies of the same thing. Yeah. And if I read the article correctly, this is all living on top of Direct Lake. So when you have Direct Lake type things, you can now have, it makes sense, right? The data is not going anywhere. All you're doing is reading the data into the model, and you have like not one analysis services model. You have 3 or 4 of them that can all read the same or load the same information. This is huge. I think this is going to be a really neat feature for companies that need to scale out large levels of queries across their models. This will be really neat to see this one work, I think.
I mean, I could not agree with you more, right? The fantastic part about an improvement like this is this is Microsoft making these things more efficient for you and less impact to the end user, right? Which just allows us to utilize utilize the compute in a really efficient way for these models to not impact not models capacities to not and usage to not impact the end user. Whether that's a balance between, oh my gosh, we're now on Fabric SKUs and we're utilizing it for other things, so we need to be more performant here. I don't care, but I agree. It's a fantastic improvement to the end user experience and just being able to refresh in that manner and validate and before it gets replaced in the production version of things and quickly.
Think about what's happening here, right? We moved from premium Gen 1 to premium Gen 2. In premium Gen 2, we didn't care about memory. We cared about compute, right? So when you care about the compute more than you care about the memory of how big the files are, we're always again, this is like way back, right? When we were way back in the early days, we could only have a 3 gigabyte model living on a machine that had 3 gigabytes of memory. But now they basically have released that capability, and now everything is focusing purely on how much compute do you need to run the thing. So in this scenario, who cares how much memory these models are eating up? The model could eat up an inordinate amount of memory. It's only when it's doing the querying or the compute capacity, that's the portion here that's actually that's where your spend is technically coming from. You're buying dedicated CUs, and those CUs are what is costing you money to run the system. And so that's been like a really, really interesting move that I think Microsoft is doing here. And I'm seeing a lot of interesting new design patterns because of this. This to me feels like one of those shift in design patterns.
So I'm going to shift gears quickly. We touched on this, but I really maybe this may be the thing I'm most excited about in the future, and that's that narrative visual copilot. I think our 8th episode ever, we talked about, does QA work with Power BI? And we all came to the consensus, not really. It's just not there. It's not something we utilize. It's not something we see clients or other organizations utilize. Okay. But if you go to the Power BI November feature summary blog, which again also came out at the same time, the narrative visual copilot, you actually see the demo of them walking through this. This is, I think, the envisionment of what we've all had of what we needed. I feel for the first time with the narrative visual with Q&A, the most promising or the most positive outlook towards this becoming part of workflows, part of major reports, and part of really what it should deliver. It's more than just, hey, what are my top sales? Show me by a bar chart, right? It was clunky before the narrative science to try to choose the metrics that you wanted. Part of that automated insights, they've never got it right. It was always off the mark somehow. Look at the visual side of it, where I can say, hey, I'm going to tell me what's going on, but I'm going to have a check marks on what metrics and fields I want you to do that context off of. So I can almost model that visual based on context that I'm choosing, which was never available before. It provides some suggestions, but I'm choosing what context I want it to provide based on the visual and also based on my model itself. We're getting to a point where this is, I think, going to be part of our training, best practices to a certain degree. I am personally really, really excited about this.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm not as thrilled about the feature, I think, as you are. I don't get a lot of people asking me for, hey, could you just give me a large blob of text that I need to read around my report? A couple bullet points might be relevant, but another, I think it's going to be helpful, I think, in some scenarios. I definitely have been in situations where reports are required to have a summary of what's going on the page. But I've used it with varying degrees of success in the past. And so I think while this is definitely probably a large leap forward in improving what it's going to get and how the information is going to look, I'm not sure if it's going to be a staple. We'll have to give this one some time. I'm going to reserve my enthusiastic opinion around the Copilot visual. It could be interesting. Now, if I could use the Copilot visual and say, as a bar chart, I want to do these things, and it will smartly grab the data fields and build me what I want for a single visual. Maybe I'm going to be a bit more user friendly with that. So we'll have to see kind of where this one lands. I'm not sure how functionally I'm going to use this visual to begin with. So I'm going to reserve a bit of my I have some reservations yet. We'll see what, again, maybe this is because I've been tainted by the past experiences of AI based visuals.
100%.
And I'm like, is it really like, is it going to tell, is it going to wow me like, Copilot does inside Edge? Is it going to provide that same level of wow? If it does, okay, I could see people using it. Where I see it being more impactful is like, I would rather have just a prompt window in the report as opposed to having a window that says, here's the text of what the report's doing. I think better prompting to the actual report page would be very helpful. That I think would be more useful to people.
Here's my prediction why I think you guys should have a little sunnier outlook towards this. No one is asked for it because it never worked. When we've done our story framing, we've understood the importance of text as well. We're actually getting something now, or what they're promoting here, at least, and I'll say that because we know I've been on the same jaded train as well, my friends. But
the jaded train, that's good.
Thank you. You're welcome. I'll be here for the next 10 minutes. But the last thing I'll say, because I know there's like 80% more things to cover. No one's had it. No one's asked for it because it never worked. If you actually had something to provide the summary text for adoption too, for the main metrics too, this would absolutely be one of the number one requests. Give me something that works. Give me something for adoption so I can get the people who aren't data savvy. I'm all on board.
I mean, let's be real here. If any of these features worked exactly as we thought they would, everyone would love every one of them. I mean, it's the difference, right? It's the difference between what is my expectation, how easy to use this thing is, and what it actually does. Like, you're trying to sift out some of the marketing jargon that's going along with this. Like, okay, this is amazing. What I do feel like here is everything everything Copilot touches is like, this is a Gartner feature to some degree. Like, it's like, look at us. We can put, natural language anywhere we want, anywhere in our tool, and no other tool in the world has this Copilot embedded into it. And I would agree. If Microsoft is able to use Copilot in efficient ways, right? I want Copilot to document my model. Write me a description for every table. I want Copilot to document my measures. Write descriptions in my measures. Syntax those things, right? So to me, where I see it as a developer, I see immense amount of value by bringing Copilot into those experiences. Hey, Power Query or Copilot, like, let's say you get a report from someone else and you go into the M editor, right? And you're in the advanced editor and you say, explain this code to me. And it goes through line by line. Here's what we're doing. Ding, 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 all the way through, right? Hey, you go into M and you notice that there's multiple remove or rename columns throughout the query. Hey, Copilot, remove any unnecessary steps from my M code, right? Hey, Copilot, write my DAX statement more efficiently, right? Those are opportunities where Microsoft could really bring the power of Copilot, I think, right next to where we're having real problems and real issues. That's, I think, where the impact is going to come from. And I think if Microsoft gathers that, if they're able to integrate it in that level of way, I think we're really going to see some very happy customers.
Mike, I hate that you're right. I don't know if you tested out the Power Apps Copilot features. Like, wow, it built me an app, and I asked for something else. Wow, it built me the same app.
I don't know yet. Cool. So the thing is, Microsoft, find the lowest hanging fruit that is redundant and silly, and I don't want to spend my time on. Right? I don't want to go in and optimize documentation. I don't want to be going through and writing a whole bunch of comments all over the place. There's a whole bunch of places where you can write descriptions. Just do it. Do it for me. Let me review the output of what you've already done. You have models with lots of tables, lots of columns. And hey, Microsoft, run Copilot. Hide all the columns that are not used in this report. How amazing would that be? Like, I think we can get there, though.
Yeah, and I think I'm slightly optimistic. I'm more with you than Tommy as far as like getting super excited about smart narratives. But at the same time, like if smart narratives are designed to bring out key insights, keep it simple, right? Give me a smart narrative that tells me, like, what am I looking like? Where is this data coming from? What are the business logic pieces? How is it getting filtered? right, in a business language speak, right? Like, because then I don't have to do that. All of the things that we talked about related to end user training and understanding the scope and where, like, what are the specific areas of the report? Like, you could easily show that to somebody if you understood the lineage of like all the things that are getting plugged together and transforming that data and summarizing it in some way. So it's like, this is what this is. Here's the calculation that you're looking at, yada, yada, yada. And then the person, the end user could be like, oh, okay, well, that makes a ton of sense. Or why are they doing that? And it would adapt and change, which means I don't have to update documentation. So, like, if you look at the power of LLMs, I think across the board, when we're talking about AI and people being excited about it, is it, if you know what you're taught, like the bullet points, you know the context, it can create all of these, all the fluff, right? Like all of the extra. I need this in a job description format. I need this in you describing this thing for me, and just lay it out so some lay person can understand what they're looking at.
Yep.
Generate some stuff for me that's just going to be time consuming for me to do and time consuming for me to maintain. Those are the big wins that are happening right now.
I know.
What I mean,
it's the same thing. It's the same thing in code, though.
I
know what I want to do. Write the specific code for me.
I'd also go down the route of like, as you're saying this, Seth, I'm having visions in my mind of like where this could go, right? I should be able to use things on top of a visual. I should be able to make a table visual, put the columns of data down so I can see the columns of data that are being presented there. And I should be able to say, from this table, make a bar chart where the legend is this, the x-axis is this, and the y-axis is that. And it should know, change it over, and it should just build all the things I want in that thing. And I should be able to, why not use Copilot to do stylizing on your visual? Like, make this visual a dark theme, and center the text on all visuals. It just knows where to do it. Like, there's mass edits across the report that you could potentially implement with Copilot things.
And I think I'm definitely taking the Copilot side from the accessibility from a consumer point of view too. How to make that a better experience for the consumer. Mm-hmm. But guys, man, there's still a ton of things. I think any of major other things, Mike, that you're seeing.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled about all the things that are like Fabric that's coming out. There's a lot of like service level features that I think that are very important here. I think this one lake integration with import mode for semantic models is going to be kind of interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. There's now shareable cloud connections for semantic models. That seems very interesting. The semantic model scale out was something I talked about earlier. That's going to be very helpful. So I think there's a lot of really cool things here. I will also note here, one of the conversations that I'm having there, if you go to the Microsoft blog and look at all of the things that are there, you'll notice there was a very Microsoft Fabric explained for Synapse users. And there's a couple notes here that I want to talk about. Maybe some, it's not the darker side, but like another side of the world here, right? There's so much excitement around Fabric that I think a lot of customers are feeling like, hey, we've already spent time building Synapse things. What's going to happen with Synapse? Because a lot of the same Synapse features are now directly related and inside Fabric. Based on the articles that I'm seeing on the website, it sounds like there's even a, I think there was, I don't know. It sounds like there's a little bit of nervousness on the Synapse users that have already purchased this stuff and saying, are we going to lose functionality? Are you killing this product? Is it going away? And it sounds like, no, it's not going away, but it also sounds like they're not going to do a lot of net new development in it. You're not going to get a ton of new features inside Synapse. Mm-hmm. So as a advice to people who have built things or look at that one, this might be an opportunity of the days are numbered potentially around Synapse related things. There is still, in my opinion, there's still some feature gaps between what Synapse does really well and what Fabric does. For example, there's a SQL serverless engine here that comes along with Synapse, and the billing method by which you get data out of Synapse and into Power BI data sets is actually fairly cheap. So if you design your system well, I really like that feature of Synapse. So the ability to run a pipeline, the ability to use a SQL endpoint to go get data of views and create them inside Power BI reports or models, it's great. I really like that feature of it. So we'll have to kind of see where this evolves inside the lens of Fabric. The other thing I didn't mention that we should definitely talk about is Microsoft announced the reserved capacity pricing for Fabric. It was announced by Amir on a tweet. And surprise, it is the same price as a premium P1. So if you want an F64 pricing, it's within $5 of the equivalent pricing for a P1. So pay $5 more per month and you get all the fabric things, and you're paying the same price as a P1, which logically in my mind, if they're trying to move you more towards this CU capacity level, it's great. It just means now you're going to use more compute for more things.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have a harder time managing all the dumb stuff.
The other fantastic part of that, though, is you manage your capacity. P1s are all managed through O365 and typically negotiated, right? Like you don't like.
Well, I think that's. I didn't see the note on that one around how you purchase the reserved capacity for Fabric.
Oh, okay. So
there's still Azure purchased, and then there's reserved capacity. I don't know the details on how you purchase the reserved capacity.
So we're not just talking FSKUs.
We're not just, well, it's
is that incremental year purchase?
Yeah, it's like you buy it for a year kind of thing, and the reserved pricing, it comes down. Azure, right. I mean, it's not about sell. It's saying Alex, it's coming from the Azure portal. So
it won't be through Office. Sweet.
Oh, interesting.
Worth it.
Okay.
Converting tomorrow.
So this is an interesting purchasing mechanism. Okay, so I didn't read the article now, and I just saw a tweet from Amir come out about the reserve pricing, the actual prices. So that's awesome to know. Thanks, Alex, for filling in the gap there on that one. But that's a huge win for I think a lot of us, because now we can then very quickly evaluate whether or not we want to stick with Fabric only in the Azure portal, which makes sense. A lot of these features are all Azure based anyways behind the scenes. So I think it's a good move.
What's crazy and good for us, I guess, is the announcement here is probably the equivalent of a novel. There are so many engineering like updates and things across the ecosystem Fabric that we haven't even touched on today. So lots more to talk about, lots more to dig into. I think Mike for sure post the link to the overall announcements in the chat, but it just goes on and on and on, and there's tons of things, new capabilities that have been lit up before GA, and a lot more to come.
Yeah, so let's do some final thoughts here. Let's wrap up and just get our final thoughts together on where are the main key points here. So final thoughts for Ignite. Tommy, what do you think?
I am incredibly pleased with it. And I think for a lot of users, you may feel that overwhelmness again, just like you felt at Build. Don't worry. There's a lot of information. Focus on the big things right now. Continue to do what you're doing in your learning. You don't have to know everything right now. There's Power Query things. There's notebook things. There's new data Gen 2 data flow things. Focus on continuing where you're going with your adoption of Fabric. You get the handle of it.
Mm-hmm. So, Seth, what do you think for final wrap up here? What are your main thoughts here?
I'm excited that it went as GA as fast as it did. I think Copilot and all of the additional things that'll help people build solutions across the platform are going to be very unique to this, analytics tool, and Power BI being part of that is really exciting. Love to see the continued enhancements around visualization. But overall, very, very happy with what I'm seeing so far and excited about it.
Very optimistic around what Copilot's doing. I hope it's going to actually provide true AI-based capacity on top of things. So remember, that's a good point. Dan reminded me here in the chat. Make sure you go out and promote Explicit Measures Podcast. Let's try that again.
Not that.
Don't write that one down. Use the hashtag Explicit Measures Podcast. Go promote it. Tell us why you like it on Twitter and LinkedIn. Tommy's watching the hashtag. He's going to count those up. You get entered in for a free week of Tips Plus. If you're at a conference and you want to get more Tips Plus, go find a sign somewhere on your conference. Take a picture of you at that sign, and then hashtag it Explicit Measures Podcast. We'll add a week-long subscription. We'll reach out to you. We'll get you some Tips Plus membership. Also, if you want 2 weeks free of Tips Plus, go find a PM somewhere in Microsoft's events. Go find a PM from Microsoft, take a picture with them, and hashtag us with Explicit Measures Podcast. We'll identify you, and we'll try to reach out and connect. This is all work that Tommy will be doing. So if it's wrong,
Thanks,
if it fails, it's all on Tommy's fault. So with that, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Please share the podcast. We really like this. It's been a lot of fun. Chat has been amazing as always. Love the thoughts and comments are coming along here. Hope you're enjoying the Fabric announcements. and particularly the Ignite event this year. Looking forward to more announcements and more deep dives as they continue to announce things. With that, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
Personally, the fact that we're doing 2 announcements, bigger than Ignite. A little bigger features here. Way bigger. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever get your podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. That helps us out a ton. If you have a question, idea, or topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode, head over to Power BI Tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. Join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and tell all your friends. Join the conversation on all Power BI Tips social media channels.
I feel like saying mediocre questions also welcome. You could ask a great question or a general one too.
Not going to get on the podcast.
Well, maybe we'll do like the worst questions we've ever had, written by Tommy. You never know. Anyways, thank you all very much. We'll see you next time.